Y'all are good? I know we just had lunch, so let's take it up a notch, all right? So by a very quick show of hands, I'm curious to know who here uses social media marketing? Okay, I know I'm at an email marketing conference. I know all the talks here about email marketing. So we're gonna mix it up. We're gonna have a little bit of fun. That's what I like to do. So today I'm gonna present to you on how to use social media and email together, which is different. Because a lot of times in this space that we're in, we always talk about social media kind of being its own strategy, its own technology, and then we talk about email being a completely separate silo. And I say this coming from the place of I've spent the majority of my career working in corporate social media marketing. You see some of the logos here on the screen of some of the brands I've had the opportunity to work for. From Dixie, BMC Software, LinkedIn. I've also had the opportunity to consult and advise for several Fortune 500s on all things social. Over the last year, I've had the distinct pleasure and opportunity to work for GetResponse. GetResponse is one of the oldest email marketing service providers in the industry. They brought me on board to serve as a brand evangelist for here in the United States. So I've learned a lot in immersing myself over the last year in this industry. And what I've realized is the parallels between email and social are very similar. Creating a brand, creating a brand persona, creating a tone, creating content, it's very similar in nature. What really changes is just the technology, right? Instead of sending tweets or posting on Instagram, you're deploying emails, you're scheduling emails out through your ESP. So what I'm gonna teach you over the next 45 minutes or so is how these systems should be working together. And you're gonna hear me mention this term a lot called own versus rented. Over the last year working with GetResponse, I've really tried to get the email industry as a whole to evangelize, and I've done this through several different partnerships and webinars and even talks like this, to start evangelizing this notion of own versus rented land, own land being email, rented being social, and how they can really be married to each other. Now, before I get started, I want to ask you a very quick question, a show of hands. How many of you here are on Instagram? Almost all of you. Here's what I want y'all to do. I want you to pull out your phone, go to Instagram, and add me at Carlos Gil 83. So you see my handle here on the screen. And I want to stay in touch. Y'all are chuckling, but that's why we come to conferences, right? It's to learn, it's to connect. So I want to connect with all of you. I'm also on LinkedIn, by the way, if you want to connect there. But with that being said, jumping right into it, today's presentation is called From Lights to Leads, Conquering the Wild, Wild West of Digital Marketing. And when I was offered this opportunity to speak here at Inbox Expo, I wanted to do something different, right? I wanted to put a theme on this talk because the internet as a whole today is the digital wild, wild west. And I can tell you, coming from the world of social media marketing, there's no rules to anything that we do. Yes, the ESP that you work with, they have their rules, right? The social networks, they have their rules. You have to work within their framework. But in terms of how we run our businesses, there's no rules. And I often like to use these examples when it comes to the social media side of the business. For many years, I worked in retail and CPG marketing. I led social media for Save-A-Lot. I led social media for Winn-Dixie. And part of the challenge that we face in these companies is driving market share away from like the Publixes of the world over to Winn-Dixie. So I came up with this notion many years ago of why don't we just implement what I like to refer to as savage marketing. And savage marketing is what you see like the Wendy's of the world do, and these like boisterous brands that have personalities, and that's really giving no Fs. It's putting a personality behind your brand and sounding less robotic and sounding more personal, and really using the data that you have access to and reaching out to customers of those brands. Now, like super conservative CMOs that I meet with, they often tell me like, Carlos, you're batshit crazy for advising my team to go after customers of our competitors. But hey, look, like there's no rules. There's no governing body that says I can't email or I can't post or engage with your customers, right? In fact, like that's the name of the game, right? It's grow more market share, grow more sales. So I say this because we are all operating in this digital ecosystem, whether it's emails, whether it's text messages, whether it's social media marketing. We're operating in this noisy, vast digital ocean that has no rules, it has no limits, but creativity is gonna be what supersedes and wins you market share. And I like to use this comparison right here to one of my favorite movies of all time, which is Castaway, right? You see this noise that's happening right here with like the what is it, the kitchen that's happening? Like, I don't know if you guys can hear it. This is like the world of marketing today. It's noisy AF. And I'm so glad that this slide is on because it almost adds like a sound effect to what I'm about to tell you. The movie Castaway is how I would compare digital marketing, whether it's social media or email marketing. In the movie, Tom Hanks is stranded on this island. And he spends the majority of the movie speaking to what? A volleyball named Wilson. And that essentially represents us today. You send out an email campaign, it gets very low visibility, gets very low conversion, gets very little opens. Guess what? You're talking to yourself. You send out a social media post, it gets very little visibility, it gets very low conversions, low clicks. You're talking to yourself. So there's a reason why this happens. And the reason is because the majority of the times when we're firing off marketing content, we're operating from a place of selling to our audience instead of finding ways to engage that audience. And then you've got the social networks themselves that you're competing with. You're competing not just against an algorithm, but you're competing against a publicly traded company that's in business to monetize data and monetize the content that lives on their platforms. I can tell you this for a fact of having spent time working for a social network in LinkedIn, that these social networks that we go on every single moment of our waking days, the doom scrolling, the TikToking, the Instagramming, the LinkedIn posts, these social networks are in business to aggregate data and then resell this data to advertisers. So the reason why your posts underdeliver and underperform isn't really because of the algorithm, it's just because most of the time you're trying to sell things to people and the social networks themselves are in business to monetize your content. So in order to play this social media game, and the reason why it's so important to own your data is if you're gonna play this game, you need to understand that any content that you post as a call to action is gonna be deprioritized by the social networks. That's one, okay? Two, if your content is optimized to sell, not engage, then that doesn't benefit the social network at all. The reason why there are posts that go viral is because oftentimes those posts are intended to entertain or educate, or they're visually appealing and they're not sales-oriented content, right? So the more content you post that's not salesy in nature and it's more engaging in nature and more people are engaging with it, now the social network themselves is actually able to sell more ads to the users on the platform. That's how this whole space works. So many times I hear marketers blaming Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, they're blaming the algorithm, and I tell them, look, don't blame these businesses for being businesses. Blame yourself for not playing their game. And also blame yourself for relying on the algorithms themselves. Blame yourself for relying on these social networks. So you see here on the screen, right? And we're gonna get to email here in just a moment. Why should you not rely on social media alone? Well, first of all, if your KPIs are centered around vanity metrics, okay, vanity metrics don't pay the bills. Likes and followers and blue checks, they just don't pay the bills. You need to be able to convert. You need to be able to post content that's educational, inspirational, or entertaining in nature to get people to really give a shit and then go to your website or tell people about your existence, right? So that's one. Two, social media, like I've just said, it's borrowed land with no deed, right? The social networks at any given time, they can shut you down. They themselves can shut down. I'm not sure how many of you in this room, since a lot of y'all are in the email space, have been following what's going on with TikTok, right? But this has been a struggle, right? TikTok is being threatened to be shut down by the US government. That should be an eye-opener to anyone and everyone that's relying on social media to grow their business and why you need to own your data. And you'd be surprised of how many TikTokers that I've met over the last year alone that make a lot of money because of TikTok, and I ask them, well, do you have an email newsletter? And they throw it back at me and say, no, why do I need one? Right? They're doing no email. So if anyone sitting in this room has an email marketing agency of any kind, let me tell you something. Here's a real talk moment. Go after creators. Those are the ones that really need help in email. The enterprise brands, like, they're good. They're spending all this money, right, to get all this help. But it's the creators that they're missing out on a life-changing opportunity. I can tell you this, being in my early 40s, I've seen MySpace come and go. I've seen Vine come and go. I've seen what happens when you put all your eggs in the social media basket. One algorithm shift, and you're gone. Like, your brand disappears overnight. It's possible. So hopefully we don't have this problem in this room, since y'all for the most part in the email industry, but I like to often ask this question to marketers. If your social media presence went away tomorrow, right? You wake up, LinkedIn's gone, TikTok is gone, Instagram's gone, would your brand still be able to exist? Right? Have you future-proofed your brand to the point where you don't have to rely on these social networks? I'll share a very quick story with all of you because I get asked this question a lot. When I started in digital marketing in 2008, okay, I had an online job board back then called Jobs Direct USA. And I was a young, scrappy marketer that had no investment capital, didn't know anything about digital marketing. I had to learn it on my own, sitting in my house in Jacksonville, Florida. And again, this is 2008, like when social media was still very much ground level. And I realized back then social media was new, but it was very noisy. And email was a direct channel for me to reach the people I was trying to reach back then, which were job recruiters and job seekers. So I created all of these LinkedIn groups. And if you were to go on LinkedIn right now and you type in Jobs Direct USA and then go to groups, they still exist. There's Miami jobs, Atlanta jobs, I created all these groups. And I created this mechanism to where in order for you to join the groups were private, you would have to request to join, and then LinkedIn would trigger an email to you, and in that email, there was instructions on how to join the group and how to be accepted. And the process was, go to my website, opt in, register and opt in, and then you would receive an email with a link to the LinkedIn group, right? Well, I did this and very quickly realized this was the growth hack to acquire hundreds of thousands of email addresses. So I say this because when people ask me, well, Carlos, you're a social media marketer by trade, you have a presence, a personal brand on all these channels, like you're reliant on them. And I say, bullshit, I'm not. Because of data. I own data. I have access to people. And that's the name of this game. You are in the business, regardless of where you sit, of sales and marketing, right? And they work together. So if you're trying to sell, or if you're trying to get on someone's radar, you need to have the ability to get in front of them. It doesn't matter how you do it. It doesn't matter the channel. You're just trying to get in front of someone. My man in the back with the Titans is trying to sell jerseys and tickets, right? It doesn't matter what channel he does that on. You just have to have access to the data. Don't be like Blockbuster Video. How many of y'all here in the room are old enough to remember Blockbuster, right? I know as a kid that grew up in the 80s and early 90s, I loved going to Blockbuster on Friday night. It was like the best experience. You go in, you smell the popcorn, you get a couple movies, a video game, like it was legit. Well, what happened? Around the early 2000s, Blockbuster didn't evolve with the times. They didn't grasp this whole concept of streaming, and like Redbox came into the market, and then Netflix came into the market, and then poof, Blockbuster was gone. So I like to often use this as a comparison for all the brands that are relying on just one or two marketing channels. And it could just be email, right? You could just be doing email marketing and no social, and you're just relying on that user base, right? I'm very, very much a fan of having an omni-channel presence, right? But an omni-channel presence of channels that speak to one another, and you have a strategy that's aligned. I'm going to get to that here in just a moment. So email brings us to where we're at here at Inbox Expo. The golden opportunity is email. And I will say this very humbly. I wish throughout the last 17 years of my career, I spent more time building an email list, launching an email newsletter, and curating that newsletter than chasing the vanity metrics, the likes, the blue checks, and all that personal brand bullshit that really doesn't pay the bills. So I'm going to just say that. We're on camera right here. Real talk to an email marketing audience. Because this is where it's at. Ownership of the data. It's proven. You have the highest ROI in your entire tech stack is with email, right? GetResponse does this report every single year, their annual benchmark report, and they analyze over 5 billion emails sent through GetResponse, with over 1 billion of them being sent in the United States alone. And guess what? The average open rate in the US through GetResponse is 32%. 32. I don't know a single influencer, celebrity, creator that sniffs that sort of open or engagement rate on social. It just doesn't exist, right? But email makes it happen. Once again, 100% of your audience is yours. There's no middleman. There's no one that's the gatekeeper saying like, hey, I have Hank's email, but you have to like throw me a couple dollars in order for Hank to see the email. No, the email's there. It's going to go directly to him. And then again, email, as we've established here, it scales better than any social platform ever will, whether it's the open rates, the click-through rates. So it brings me to this point, ownership of data versus renting data. The future, from my perspective, really belongs to those that are in the business of owning data, regardless of where you sit, right? A couple of years ago, my brother-in-law and I, we started up a sneaker resale business in Jacksonville, Florida. I would consider myself to be a well above average digital marketer. In that business venture, we did no email marketing, unfortunately. Why? Because as a small business owner, I was busy running the business every single day. And that was a missed opportunity in hindsight. Looking back, we should have had a daily newsletter for the sneakerhead community. It would have helped boost e-commerce sales, right? So I say this transparently because so many times businesses are missing out on this opportunity. And I see a lot of folks in the room, they're on the agency side, the vendor side, some of y'all here work at brands. Regardless of where you sit, you should really be strategizing on how you can acquire more data, acquire more email addresses. Back in the day when I ran social for Winn-Dixie and then digital for Save-A-Lot, it all centered around our loyalty program. Like the loyalty program was the de facto email newsletter program, because through a loyalty program, you can give someone something, and in exchange, they have to sign up and give you their email address in return. So you look at the breakdown here, right, of social versus email. First of all, social is great for discovery. So what I mean by this is from a pure brand awareness standpoint, you need to use social media, right? Email's a little trickier, right? Email, once people know that you exist, meaning they go to your website, they see you on social, someone tells them, hey, like Nordstrom's has a sale, like go to their website and sign up, like then that's an easy play. Now you have them hooked. But from a pure discoverability standpoint, email's not that. Social is that. So I'm not here saying like, look, like social media is awful, don't use it. You need to use it, but you need to use it strategically to raise awareness for your brand, but then drive people from that funnel of, brand awareness into your email newsletter. So social is great for discovery, but it's not a viable business model. Meaning you cannot run an entire business relying on social networks alone, and the reason for that is because of your limited reach. If I were to spend all my time, effort, and energy to grow a personal brand or a business brand, but only 1 to 3% of those followers ever see my content, then I'm wasting my time, right? It's just the proof is in the pudding, right? 1 to 3% versus 30% open rates, that's a big disparity. Email gives you, once again, direct access. There's no middleman. There's no algorithm that's preventing you from reaching your audience. Email marketing, as you see here, has an average open rate of 32%, and then marketers who build audiences, they can monetize on their terms. How many of you have courses, or who has maybe even thought about creating a course? A couple people, info products, right? Like info products, courses, these are tools that you can and should be leveraging to make more money. The whole strategy behind it, though, is you give away freemium content through social or YouTube, right? You drive people to your landing page, and then you convert them through email once you have them hooked. Anyone know who this young man is here on the screen? No? You guys work in email marketing and you don't know who Alex Lieberman is? Let me tell you guys. Have y'all heard of the Morning Brew? Okay. I know, okay, you have half a face there. I'll let you guys off the hook. So when I joined GetResponse, I started researching like, who are the ballers in email? Like, who are like the real ballers? Who are the players? And what have they done to get them there, right? Again, I come from the world of social media marketing. Gary Vee is a big personality, but I was like, who's that in email? And what I started realizing is the email marketing industry doesn't really have as many like personalities like social and digital does, but there's a lot of money in email. And I became very hooked at seeing how much opportunity exists. And this example right here really stood out to me. So Alex Lieberman and his co-founder in their dorm room started up an email newsletter called The Morning Brew. And the whole premise of The Morning Brew is an email newsletter for the marketing and business community that's sent out every single day with the latest headlines and news in marketing and in business. Pretty simple. Mind you, these aren't articles that they wrote. It's not original content. It's basically a digest. Well, they were able to scale this newsletter to 4 million subscribers. They were able to exit in 2020 and sell their newsletter for $75 million. Do the math here, okay? You have over 5 billion email addresses in the world. They got only 4 million people. Like, people say, Carlos, 4 million subscribers is a lot. It's really not a lot. When you think about the industry that you work in, right? If you are an artist, right? Look how many artists there are around the world, right? If you're a sneakerhead, if you're a Gen Zer, like, it doesn't matter where you sit. Think about your own interests and passions. So I'm going to speak right now to those of you in this room that have ever thought about having a side hustle, right? You have a day job. The day job pays the bills. That's not really your passion. Think about starting an email newsletter, like real talk. Whether it's a daily or a weekly or twice a week, start an email newsletter. And it's not hard to do, right? We have ChatGPT nowadays. That you can have ChatGPT write the whole thing for you. You just have to be able to tap into a segment or an audience and be the media entity for that audience, right? So email newsletters, for me, is where it's at in terms of own land, where a lot of creators, small businesses, and even major corporations need to be thinking. If you're an enterprise brand, how does an email newsletter make sense for you? Easy. Make it the VIP section of your business. Make it the VIP section of your brand. Create a club, create an insider society, but make people feel special, right? I like to shop at Nordstrom's, and Nordstrom sends me like, oh my God, like 2 to 3 emails a day. It's overwhelming at times. What I'd really love for Nordstrom's to do is take the Nordies Club, which is their loyalty program, and make it a secret society based on my interests, right? Then send me content that's unique to me, to what I want to see, right? I come to these conferences, I'm always hearing all these different vendors. They're all about like data, and we help with attribution models and segmentation models. Cool. Work with your clients so then they have segmented audiences, so then the emails that those audiences receive are unique to that persona, and then as a result, you'll have higher opens and conversion and click-through rates, right? So again, think about the email newsletter as the think about it as the VIP section for your brand. No different than celebrities nowadays have like their only private clubs. I hate to use this example, so like please don't give it the like think like OnlyFans, but like in a business, right, environment, right, with your email newsletter. Right here's the funnel. So social gets you seen, emails what gets you paid. Right? This right here is the breakdown. For me, just to make this really simple, I'm going to walk you through this methodology. You have your social media followers, that's borrowed attention, right? That's really the top of the funnel. So all the content that your marketing teams post on social, that has a purpose, and that purpose should be to educate, inspire, entertain, or engage. It's not to sell. You don't sell on social media. You use social media content to raise heightened awareness for your business and your brand. Right? Email, that's own direct channels. That is where when people opt in because they learn about you on social, then your email newsletter, your communications via email is where you're nurturing and building a relationship ongoing with your customers. And then there's sales, right? Which is at the top of the funnel, or I'm sorry, the bottom of the funnel. Top of mind, but bottom of the funnel. There's sales is where the magic happens, but it's a process. So let's talk about the funnel. You know, staying on our Wild Wild West theme here. The funnel is the new trail. And I'm going to walk you through here this process from scroll to sale, and I'm going to share a cool case study with you. So content is what people see, right? I think in this kind of context, in this room of email marketers, we often just think of content as what people see in the email, and that's highly important and highly relevant. But for them to learn about you, there has to be a trigger or mechanism for someone to know that you or your clients exist. That's the content that lives on social, right? Someone sees your client or your brand on social, there's a cool experience, there's a shout out, hey, visit our website for an offer, you're gonna save a few bucks, link is in the bio, cool, they click that link in the bio and it should take them to a lead magnet of some sort. If you're on the B2B side, it could be a webinar, right? You use social media as a way to promote your next upcoming webinar, and then when you click the link in the bio, there's a lead magnet or a landing page, and then from there, someone can opt in, right? If you're on the consumer side, it might be an offer, It might be an invitation to your loyalty program. Someone gets that offer, and then the email journey starts, right? I'm a big fan of marketing automation sequences, because marketing automation is a way to keep your brand always on at all times, stay top of mind and relevant. And then there's the offer, and then there is the sale. So I would highly recommend that you take a photo of this slide right here for those of you that are following along kind of what this journey entails. So again, from scroll to sale, content on social, people are aware that you exist, then they visit your website, they go to a landing page or a lead magnet that you create, there's an offer of some sort, they claim that offer, you now own their email address, and then you nurture them ongoing. So, let me tell you about these two guys. One of them is me, the other one's my brother-in-law, Reggie. In 2020, getting my dates confused. During COVID, we started a brand called Outlaw Masks. Right? So if you remember, like March 2020, beginning of COVID, right? Hate to kind of bring this up, you know, I'm sure it causes some triggers for some people, so I apologize. But March 2020 happens. I'm actually scheduled to speak here in Austin at South by Southwest. That gets canceled. All my speaking engagements get canceled. I lose a ton of business. Like, it was awful. So my brother-in-law and I, we put our heads together and we're like, all right, well, what are we gonna do? So we come up with this like wild and crazy idea about a mask business, go figure. Everyone was wearing masks back then. So it was a product that people needed. But these weren't like any old regular masks. These weren't like paper masks. They were reusable, washable, cool masks. We did them in all the different colorways. Like we live in Jacksonville, Florida, so like this is our Jacksonville Jaguar colorway mask. We did like all the different NBA teams, NFL teams. Our business took off like a rocket. We made over $500,000 in sales within the first 6 months of us existing. And I say this not to like flex about it, but to share with you how we did that. And it was this blueprint right here. So how do we get a business off the ground during a pandemic with very little knowledge of brand building back then and e-commerce? It was simple. We would go into stores like Walmart and Target, and we would create content, feel-good content that we would then post on TikTok. In our TikTok bio, we had a link to outlawmasks.com, one link. That website had tracking pixels. Those tracking pixels would serve ads on Facebook and on Instagram to anyone that would visit our website and click off, as well as the lookalike audiences. We were constantly pulling data from people that were visiting our website and buying. Every single day we would do this, and we would upload that data right into our Facebook Business Manager to serve audience lookalikes ads, right? And all the wording, all the copy was like, hey, your friend just bought 2 masks in Austin, Texas. Like, let's hook you up with like 50% off. Well, we ran this play over and over again. It was like literally printing money, right? So I say this again because this was the blueprint of what we did, the 5C framework. Started with first capturing content, right? You have to capture content. Content that you record. If I go on my phone right now, I've got like over 30,000 pieces of content. There are future viral videos on my phone right now. I record like everything. The brisket and mac and cheese that was downstairs that I didn't eat because I don't like to eat before I go on stage, that looked amazing. That's a future TikTok video, right? About food in Texas at a conference. As a marketer, I'm always thinking about content. Because you need content. So the content you record isn't just limited to social media. You can also repurpose that content in an email. You can drop it on YouTube and then embed the YouTube video in an email. You can take a photo and you can drop it in an email. It's not just limited. But you need to be in the mind frame of capturing content. Content is what gets people's attention. It's what gets them to wake up and say, this is a cool brand, cool person, a service that I need. You need to capture content. Then, where you place that content, you must have triggers or hooks to capture the data the people are seeing the content. If you have a piece of content that goes viral, okay, and you're not capturing people's information, you're wasting your time, just straight up. So everyone wants to go viral. Right? It's going to change your life because you go viral. When we were running the Outlaw Mask Display, we were going viral every single flipping day because we knew the framework. We already knew if we post videos of us giving masks to people, it's going to make whoever's watching us feel really good, and then they're going to click like, or they're going to troll us because you have some a-holes out there, but that's good because that's engagement. And the more engagement we get, more people are going to visit our website, more people that visit the website are going to buy, or if they visit our website and they click off, they're going to see Outlaw Masks every time they go all over Instagram and Facebook. Again, printing money this way. But it starts with content and then having mechanisms to collect that data. The mechanisms are literally links in bio, landing pages you set up, but mechanisms in place for you to capture. Then once you capture, it's all about converting, right? You have a lot of thought leaders, I'll say like send 5 or 7 emails before you try to sell to someone. F that. If someone learns about you today, try to sell them on the first date. But give them an offer to do it, right? If someone's learning about you today, it is easy to sell to them today. It's going to be really hard to sell to them 5 days from now. Because by then, they've already gotten offers. Like, think about all of our activity, right? We're all digital, right, first at this point. We're on our phones all the time. There's a lot of noise. Continue to do this over and over again, regardless of what you do, and you will see how you will cash in. But it starts with creating content. And here is the breakdown of the anatomy of high-performing emails. So again, it all starts in the subject line. All starts. I don't know about you guys. I could go on my phone right now, and I can just tell, add. Oh, this looks kind of cool. Let me open it up, right? Subject lines, if they sound like an ad, read like an ad, people aren't going to open them. Try to personalize the content that you send via email. The body is all about the story that sells. So I'm a big fan. I advise clients on doing this, on have like stripped to the bare bones emails that don't look like a mass send. Literally, make your emails look like you're opening up Outlook and sending an email to someone, right? No emojis, no bold fonts, no photos. Make it look as organic as it possibly can. And if you are going to put an image, ensure that's an image that catches someone's attention, like right off rip. Like the first thing they see is that image and it gets them to scroll. And then call to action, don't confuse your audience with all these multiple call to actions, right? Just have one. Let your email be the guide that walks that end user into what you want them to do. This right here is a system that I've used now successfully in businesses of my own. First, have a badass landing page. So a landing page that grabs people's attention off rip, right? So many times, whenever I see clients, digital marketers, their landing pages, their websites, it's too messy. There's too much going on, right? Tell me right in your header what the hell you do, who you are, what makes you different. Boom, right? You can do that easily through a landing page. Then have an email series that converts, like a welcome email series, right? For me, the magic is in when someone first opts in. Again, it's easy to convert people and get them to buy things when they first learn about you, because your relationship with them is fresh. Think about when you've ever dated someone, right? It's going to get real awkward for a moment. But when you first date someone, you're in that honeymoon phase, everything feels good, right? Your relationship with your customers is very similar to dating, right? You're courting them, you meet them, right? You're in that honeymoon phase. Hook them with emails right off rip, letting them know how valued they are, how much you want their business, give them an offer. Every time, ever since I started working with GetResponse about a year ago, every time I can sign up for an email newsletter, I do, because I want to see what the experience is like. I love the brands that right off rip are giving me like a 25, 30% offer, or the ones that are giving me something for free, right? Those are the ones that keep me hooked. That's the irresistible offer. How many of you are using AI in your businesses? Okay, good amount of you, about half of you. Is it ChatGPT or using something more advanced? For the most part, it's ChatGPT. Okay. I'm a big ChatGPT fan. What I would say is you run the risk with sounding overly robotic if you're constantly relying on AI to do the work for you. So that's one. I would spend time letting ChatGPT or whichever AI platform you're using of choice, I would spend time letting them know about your ICP, letting them know about your customer, letting them know everything that you know about your customer. Whenever I work with a client, I'll ask them for their brand book, and I really could, care less about colors and fonts and things like that. What I really want to know is all the research that you've done on your customer base. because I want to feed that information into ChatGPT so whenever ChatGPT is writing on your behalf, it sounds as close to the voice and tone of who you're trying to sell to or who you're trying to engage. So what I will say is this: don't be afraid of AI for those of you that aren't using it. AI is not going away, right? It's not. There's a lot of doom and gloom around it, right? A lot of CEOs now are saying that, this is going to replace jobs. Cool, we get that. But AI used as a resource can actually be what helps you stay in a job for the next 1 to 2 decades if you're on the offense and not on the defense. So don't be fearful of it. Use it as your assistant. Use it as your business partner. Use it as your copywriter. Use it as a resource to review everything that you do, right? But just don't sound robotic. People today don't want to be sold to, they want to be engaged. When I wrote my book, End of Marketing, it came out in 2019. The book is actually more relevant to today's audience in 2025 than it was in 2019 or 2020 and so forth. And that's because the whole thesis behind why I'm passionate about online marketing is because I think you have a lot of bad marketers. And you have a lot of bad marketers that have taken the human element out of sales and marketing, and instead it's all about KPIs, all about metric, when it's not. If I had to ask every single one of you, do you enjoy being sold to? I guarantee you, all of y'all will probably say, no, I don't, right? Because no one wants to be sold to. But what have we been conditioned as an industry to do? It's to sell. Now, when you add a human element into it, meaning voice, tonality, personality, the content that you create doesn't look like an ad, it looks like something cool, fun that people want to engage and share with their friends, that's when you're adding the human element into sales and marketing. So, as we look to wrap up, here are some mistakes to avoid. First of all, over-automating before you've earned trust, right? It's so easy for you to alienate your customers because they opt into your emails and they get 2 to 3 emails a day, every single day, sequentially for 5 days, right? I would recommend that when someone opts into your email, the first email that they get, in addition to being an offer, is maybe a survey or a quiz for you to ask them how often do they want to receive communications from you. Blasting everyone with the same message is going to be the kiss of death for your email marketing. Get to know your customers, right? Segment out your audiences. Segmentation is so critical because when you segment your audiences out and you know as much about your audience, like male, female, the people that open versus the people that don't, the people that have never opened up any one of your campaigns, the last 20 that you've sent, you need to work all these audiences uniquely. Again, social doesn't allow you to do that, but email does. Pitching before priming, right? Get to know your audience. Give them something of value, right? And then reel them in. Forgetting that 70% of opens happen on mobile, so optimizing your emails. Well, I'm on my iPhone all day, right? I'm sure a lot of you are on your mobile devices also. If an email I had to start flipping through, right, like I'm scrolling on TikTok, it's done. It's too much content. So write short, concise, catchy emails, and more important, write like a marketer, not a human. So here are the final words from the outlaw, so to speak. Quit chasing clout. For those of you that are battling with the KPIs of the likes, the vanity metrics, the shares on social, stop. Clout doesn't pay bills. Conversions, sales is what does. Your systems scale, your followers flake, right? Followers are not loyal. Someone might follow you today on social, they might unfollow you tomorrow, right? Because you post too much content. Or they might follow you today, but they never look at your content, so the algorithm will deprioritize your account, so they won't see that you exist. Don't be at the mercy of the platforms that you don't own. Like, this is the biggest thing, right? The biggest key takeaway is do not rely on platforms that you have no control, no ownership over anything. Once you post that photo on Facebook, it's gone. You don't own it at all. And then email is the leverage. So build now. Email newsletters, from my perspective, are really where the investment needs to be made. You got a lot of ESPs in this game, right? GetResponse is one of the oldest players in the game. They've been around since the late 90s. They're affordable. They're easy to use. If you scan this QR code right here, you can sign up for a 30-day trial of GetResponse. You can use it for free. You can send unlimited emails, no credit card required. So if you've ever been thinking about hopping from, I won't mention any competitors here on stage, but if you've ever been thinking about hopping from your current ESP and you want to try someone new, here's your opportunity, friends. How was this? Helpful? thank you for your time, y'all. So before I get off stage, first I want to open this up to any questions that you guys have. So I don't know if you guys have any questions. I'll give you a minute to pass the mic around. I actually want to make an announcement real quick. So my last day with GetResponse is next Friday. So sorry for the bad news. Hate to be the bearer of bad news. I'm going to be moving on from GetResponse. Been very grateful for the opportunity to work with them as their U.S. brand evangelist for the last year. My next play is to jump into the agency space. So I have found there is an opportunity in this industry that's really not being capitalized on by the ESPs. Do we have any ESPs in the room, by the way? Okay, a couple? Wow, a lot. All right, we got to talk, right? So look, I'm all about giving free game. That is what has helped me grow a career over the last 17, almost 20 years. So if anyone here has a marketing agency, like, we can be friends. We should talk. The greatest opportunity that I've seen in the email industry in this last 13 months I've worked for GetResponse is the fact that people are overlooking the creator segment. GetResponse brought me on board primarily to grow their market share in the US amongst creators. People are overlooking creators because they look at creators as just TikTokers, or they look at them as just Instagrammers. These are people who have mass influence, guys. They have more influence than any one of us in this room, respectfully saying. So if you're overlooking people that have reach, you're already behind. If you can be their partner on the ESP side, or as an analyst, or as a consultant, or as an advisor, and you can be the one that helps them build their newsletter, trust me, they're going to bring their friends and they're going to tell everyone they know that you exist. The other segment is small business owners. I spent the last 4 years, from 2020 to 2024, running an e-commerce business like you saw, running a sneaker resale store, and I overlooked email significantly because I didn't have time to do email right. And there's business owners all over America and all over the world are in the same position as I was. So if there's any advice I can lend to any of y'all, it's keep the creators and small business owners in mind. They need the help. If you scan this QR code here, I want you guys to be the first to see what I'm working on. It's called Send Focus. So scan the QR code. It's going to actually prompt you, as you see, drop in your email. I want to stay in touch. I want to find ways for us to collaborate and work together. You know, I believe in the power of collaboration in order to help, you know, all tides and all ships rise up. So that is my very brief pitch. I hope you guys have enjoyed this session. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you might have. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Most people, the reason probably they haven't reached out to influencers is because they perceive that the influencers are broke, so that they can't pay for any list that you're building for them. What would you say to that? I'm throwing it out there. It's not being...
No, I love this question. The biggest misconception is actually what you just said, that influencers are broke. There is so much money being thrown away in influencer marketing right now, and creator marketing, especially on the B2B side, especially on LinkedIn, right? I myself am a creator as well. I get paid by brands to endorse them, right? I just did a campaign with Adobe, for example. So creators have a perception that they are young or immature and don't bring value, but these individuals have so many followers that are loyal to them. So the magic is really finding a creator or an influencer, right, that can help propel your company or align your company. On the ESP side, it's easy, right? All these creators that I meet, for the most part, they're not leveraging email properly because social is easy. They can just post, right? And it's instant. But what I tell them is, if you actually want to increase your deal flow and make more money, have an email newsletter, because brands will pay you more money than you make today because you have own data that you can leverage. Does that help answer your question? That was a good one.
Any other questions for Carlos? Going once, going twice. Carlos, thank you for your time.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thanks, man.